There are still places on this planet where humans have never been. Not many, but they exist. Deep rainforest interiors, unmapped cave systems, sections of ocean floor, a handful of islands where no human has ever set foot. And in those places, the animals have no file on us, no inherited memory, no cultural warning passed down through generations, no encoded response built from thousands of years of contact. They have nothing. So when researchers and explorers have, on rare documented occasions, entered those spaces for the first time, something happened that nobody fully predicted. The animals didn't run. Most people assume wild animals have a universal fear of humans, that it's instinctive, built in, that any animal, anywhere, would flee the moment it detected a person approaching. That assumption is wrong in a specific and important way. The fear isn't instinctive, it's learned. And what happens before that learning takes place, in the first moment of genuine first contact, is something researchers have been carefully documenting. Because what those animals do in that moment reveals something about what we actually are to the rest of life on this planet. Not what we've become to them over time, what we are at the start, before history between species begins. The clearest documented cases come from islands. In 2016, biologists studying wildlife on a remote section of the Galápagos Islands observed land iguanas that had no prior history of human contact. The researchers approached slowly. The iguanas watched. They did not move. One researcher crouched within arm's reach of a fully grown iguana. The iguana turned its head and looked directly at the researcher's face. It showed no flight response, no threat display, no freezing. It simply looked. This behavior has a name in field biology. It's called naive prey response. An animal that has no learned association between humans and danger does not automatically categorize a human as a threat. Its threat detection system searches its entire library of known dangers and comes back with no match. The human doesn't register as predator. It doesn't register as prey. It doesn't fit any category the animal has ever needed. So the animal does what any cognitively complex creature does when it encounters something genuinely new. It investigates. This pattern appears consistently across documented first contact events. In 2019, a conservation team working in a previously uncharted section of the Amazon basin encountered a group of peccaries, wild pig-like mammals, that showed no fear response whatsoever. The animals approached the researchers. They sniffed equipment. One animal pressed its snout against a researcher's boot and held it there for several seconds before moving on. No alarm call, no flight, curiosity. A wildlife biologist on the team, Dr. Joanna Ramos, noted in her field report that the peccaries' behavior matched what the literature predicted for naive prey. They were running their threat assessment, finding no match, defaulting to investigation mode. The researchers stood completely still because they understood what was happening, and they understood that the next few minutes would determine what these animals would encode about humans for potentially generations. They were, without choosing to be, the first data point in a file that would be passed down. Here is where it gets more complicated. The naive prey response doesn't last long. It can't, because the moment a human does anything, moves too quickly, makes an unexpected sound, reaches out, the animal's threat system gets new information, and it updates fast. Researchers who have documented first contact events describe a specific transition. There is a window, sometimes seconds, sometimes minutes, where the animal is in pure investigation mode. No fear, no aggression, complete open attention. And then something shifts. The exact trigger varies. Sometimes it's a sudden movement. Sometimes it's eye contact held too long. Sometimes it's nothing the researchers can identify, just a threshold being crossed inside the animal's assessment. When the shift happens, the animal doesn't gradually become wary. It reclassifies completely. One moment it is investigating. The next moment it is treating the human as the most dangerous thing it has ever encountered. And it doesn't come back from that. that. Field researchers have noted that once a naive animal makes the reclassification, once it updates its file on humans from unknown to threat, the change appears to be permanent. The animal that approached you with curiosity 60 seconds ago will not approach you again, ever. You get one window, and then it closes. This is the part that carries the most weight, because the animals that survive first contact with humans don't just update their own behavior. In social species, birds, mammals, primates, the information moves. Researchers studying first contact events in isolated bird populations have documented what happens after one bird in a flock has a negative encounter with a human. Within hours, birds that were not present for the encounter begin showing avoidance behavior. The warning call carries specific information. The flock updates. In elephant populations, the encoding goes further. Karen McComb's research at the University of Sussex demonstrated that elephants carry social memories of human groups across decades. When isolated elephant populations encounter humans for the first time, the response depends heavily on which individuals in the group have prior experience. If the matriarch has a history with humans, her encoded response becomes the group's response. Her knowledge is the first data the group uses. But in populations with genuinely no history, no matriarch who has encountered humans, no inherited warning, the first contact event becomes the founding document. What happens in those first minutes determines what every animal in that population will teach its offspring about humans permanently, across generations. You are not just meeting an animal. You are writing the first entry in a file that will. Think about what this means. Every animal alive today that shows fear of humans, and that is most of them, is not reacting to you personally. It is reacting to the accumulated record of every first contact its lineage ever had. Somewhere in the past of every fearful wild animal is a moment exactly like what the researchers described, a window of open curiosity, an animal that had no reason to fear. And then something happened in that window. Something got encoded, and the information traveled forward through time, parent to offspring, generation to generation, until it reached the animal standing in front of you now. The fear you see is not instinct. It is history, compressed into behavior, running automatically. And in the few remaining places where that history doesn't exist yet, where the animals still have an open file, the window is still there, brief, fragile, closing the moment anything goes wrong. Researchers who have experienced genuine first contact describe it in similar terms, regardless of the animal or location. A quality of attention that feels different from anything in normal fieldwork. An animal that is fully present, not afraid, not performing, just looking. One field researcher, writing about a first contact encounter with a previously unstudied primate group in Central Africa, described the moment a juvenile approached him and sat down 3 feet away. The juvenile looked at his hands, then at his face, then at his hands again. He sat completely still for 4 minutes. He wrote later that he had the distinct sense of being examined by something that had formed no opinion yet, that he was, in that moment, genuinely unknown. He also noted that he was aware the entire time that whatever he did next would matter, not just for this animal, for every animal in that group, for their offspring. The weight of that, he wrote, was unlike anything else he had experienced in 20 years of field research. The naive prey window is closing globally. As human presence expands into the last unstudied regions, the number of animals that carry an open file on us shrinks. Each first contact, documented or not, writes a new entry, closes a window, adds to the accumulated record that every animal alive is already running. Most wild animals on Earth have already decided what we are. They decided it long before you were born. Possibly long before your great-grandparents were born. The fear you see when you walk near a wild animal is not about you. It is about everyone who came before you, every first contact, every encoded warning, Every file entry that survived long enough to become inherited behavior. You are not the cause. You are the latest evidence confirming something the animal already knew. The question no one can fully answer is what those animals, the ones in the last unstudied places, the ones that still have an open file, would make of us if the window stayed open long enough. If the first data point was different, what would they encode then?